Namaste, good morning, good evening, welcome back. This is our 19th session, and today we propose to cover Shlokas 32 to 37. And in the next couple of sessions, we will be able to cover all the 47 Shlokas of chapter 1, and then we do a recap, and that will complete the first course, which is the first step into Bhagavad Gita. And after that, we can take the summer break. And when we meet, regroup in September, definitely we can start chapter 2. So without any delay, let's get started. We are going to quickly see where we left last time, and then we can continue. So last week, we covered Shlokas 28 to 31. So let's quickly listen.
कृपया परया विष्टः विषीदन्निदमब्रवीत् अर्जुन उवाच दृष्ट्वेमं स्वजनं कृष्ण युयुत्सुं समुपस्थितं सीदन्ति मम गात्राणि मुखं च परिशुष्यति वेपधुश्च शरीरे मे रोमहर्षश्च जायते गाण्डीवं श्रंसते हस्तात् त्वक्चैव परिदह्यते न च शक्नोम्यवस्थातुं भ्रमतीव च मे मनः निमित्तानि च पश्यामि विपरीतानि केशव न च श्रेयोनुपश्यामि हत्वा स्वजनमाहवे.
So in this shloka, it was a dramatic transformation. Arjuna was determined to engage in this battle when he suddenly saw whom he need to fight with. What exactly is the reality of the situation? He was completely overwhelmed by the pressure of the situation. This is exactly the problem Gita is addressing. We do have skills, we do have knowledge. That alone is not good enough to face a situation. When we face a situation, especially if that situation has an impact on our likes and dislikes, raga and dvesha. Raga and dvesha, we talked about that. When what we need to do contradicts with what we feel to do, the situational pressure is going to come. And in that situational pressure, we find ourselves completely helpless. This is exactly what we saw. We did an analysis of the situation from both Mahabharata perspective, what happened to Arjuna, and then we brought that back this into our own life. We all, when we face a situation, whether when that alarm get up in the morning, or when we have to face a challenging situation like a public speaking, or sometimes when we've challenged with the situational pressure, we find ourselves helpless. So when we navigate through the battle of life or our path in our life, we cannot expect that always the path is going to be smooth. Always the situation is going to be conducive. If we are a human being, we have to go through this difficult situation in life. And most of the times, we do not have the skills or we do not have that emotional intelligence to get over the situation and navigate through the life. And this is the fundamental problem shown by the Gita. And if you remember, we put this into 3 steps: raga and dvesha, binding attachments and binding aversions. And when we face a situation, if a situation put something against that binding attachment and binding aversion, what is going to happen? That creates shoka, emotions. Emotions are always good, but extreme emotional responses. Extreme emotional responses. And under that emotional imbalance, what is going to happen? we get deluded, we get carried away, and we find the knowledge, skills, and our own intelligence becomes useless at that point of time. This is the sequence of steps clearly shown by the Bhagavad Gita using the example of Arjuna. So let's continue these verses. Now we find a we found that we are in a situation which is going to create emotional disturbances in us. And now naturally what we try to do, we find an escape route, or we say that I cannot do what needs to be done. And the moment I decide that, our own mind is going to come up with a lot of rationalizations. Okay, simple example. When I get up in the morning, the alarm rings up. I'll say that, okay, I worked hard yesterday, so let me sleep today. That is the rationalization. And this rationalization on the face appears to be really good. It is a very valid, if you take that rationalization alone, most of the times we put forth, they have a value. But the problem is, are we making that rationalization from a strong mind, clear mind? Or are we making that rationalization from a confused mind or a disturbed mind? That is what makes a difference. So here Arjuna, when he saw this challenging situation, he started giving lot of rationalizations. And if you independently take all these arguments, they have a value. But when you put together that grand scheme of things, it may not go well. If you take your desire to sleep a little bit more on a morning, that has a value. You deserve that. But when you put that into your overall scheme of things, you find that that may not fit well with that situation. So this is what we are going to see today. Arjuna, when he got completely perplexed by the situation, he started giving out a lot of arguments. Let's see his arguments. That is the next set of shlokas. So it's a set of shlokas from 32 to 37. So let's listen first, and then we will see the literal meaning, and then we will see the meaning from a Mahabharata perspective and also a battle within perspective.
न काङ्क्षे विजयं कृष्ण न च राज्यं सुखानि च किं नो राज्येन गोविन्द किं भोगैर्जीवितेन वा येषामर्थे काङ्क्षितं नः राज्यं भोगाः सुखानि च तयिमेव स्थिता युद्धे प्राणां त्यक्त्वा धनानि च आचार्याः पितरः पुत्राः तथैव च पितामहाः मातुलाश्वशुराः पौत्राः स्यालाः सम्बन्धिनस्तथा एतान्न हन्तुमिच्छामि घ्नतोऽपि मधुसूदन अपि त्रैलोक्यराज्यस्य हेतोः किं नु मही कृते निहत्य धार्तराष्ट्रान्नः का प्रीतिः स्याज्जनार्दन पापमेवाश्रयेदस्मान् हत्वैतानाततायिनः तस्मान्नार्हा वयं हन्तुं धार्तराष्ट्रान् स्वबान्धवान् स्वजनं हि कथं हत्वा सुखिनः स्याम माधव.
These shlokas shows the rationalization given by Arjuna. And as I said, if you take these individual rationalization, they appears to be very valid. So let's see the literal meaning. So the first shloka, 32, he say, Nakamshe Vijayam Krishna Nacha Rajyam Sukhani Cha Naha Rajyena Govinda Kim Bhogair Jivitenava. I'm breaking the words apart as requested by a lot of you. So this particular shloka, what does that mean? Let's see the meaning of this. So Arjuna says, "O Krishna, I do not desire the victory." So when he came to the battlefield for the victory, but when he is under the pressure, he made an argument, a rationalization. What is the first argument he said? "O Krishna, I do not want victory." The second thing is that he say, "Rajyamna Rajyamcha, do not desire the kingdom." First thing he said is, "I don't want the victory." Then he said, "I do not desire the kingdom and the comforts." I neither want kingdom nor want any comforts that comes associated with the power. Then he said, "Govinda Rajyena na kim." Finally, he says, "What will be there? Kim by Bhoga va jivitena." What is the meaning of enjoyments and living after all? So he got completely desperate and he gave the argument. This is the four sentences he uses. So the whole summarizing it, he says, "Krishna, I want neither victory nor kingdom nor comforts. What is the use of pleasures and life itself for us?" This is the first shloka, 32. So just like that, let's quickly see all the 5 shlokas and then we will come back to the overall meaning. And the shloka 33, he say, "Yananicha." So then he continues that rationalization. "Those forsake alone the kingdom or the objects of enjoyment, the power and the pleasures we want, they all are assembled here, having given up their interesting even in their life. They are ready to die and they are come here to fight." So Arjuna is rationalizing that what is the point of me gaining power or anything without these kith and kin? So again, rationalization. So this is shloka 33 and let's see shloka 34. So in shloka 34, Arjuna is again saying, "Acharya Pitara Putra." So there he gives different people who is assembled there. Acharya means teachers. Pitara means father-like figure. Putra, Matula, Pitamaha, Pautra, Shyala, Sambandhinastada. He just enumerates all the different relatives. In front of me, who is ready to fight, is father-like figure, uncle-like figure, sons-like figure, friends. All these are not an external enemy, but all these are dear to me, people very close to me. How can I fight with them? And in shloka 35, he continue, he say, "Etan," he extends that argument when after seeing the people. Again, it is the rationalization. Arjuna is coming. He say, "O Madhusudana, I do not want to kill these people. Even they are attacking me. Even they are attacking me, I don't want to attack them. Even for the sake of kingdom. Oh, why not for the kingdom? Even if I'm given the whole 3 world, I do not want. Anything material, I do not want to fight with them." See, these arguments appears to be very valid and a sacrifice. That is the beauty of these rationalizations. And then on shloka 36, he continue, right? He says like, what is the satisfaction or what is the benefit for all of us by killing all these sons of Dhritarashtra? Having killed these Atatais means that even though they are deserved to have capital punishment, what is the point in killing them? Because even though they did a lot of things, but I do not want to kill them. This is Arjuna's argument. So this is the rationalization we talked earlier. So the summary, all that 32 to 37, Arjuna talks to Krishna. "O Krishna, I harbor no desires for victory. I don't want victory, right? Kingdom or earthly pleasure, anything in the world I don't want. What the earth holds, a kingdom, enjoyment, even the life, O Govinda. All we seek is, meaning all those we seek kingdom enjoyment, and pleasures, they stand here ready for the battle, having forsaken the life and wealth. I have no desire to slay them, even if they are ready to slay us, nor for the domination of the three worlds, let alone this earth, would I wish to kill the sons of Dhritarashtra. O Madhusudana. Then again he says, O Janardana, how could we find peace in slaying the sons of Dhritarashtra? By committing such an act, we could only invite sin upon ourselves. Therefore, it is not fitting for us to kill the sons of Dhritarashtra, our own kin. How could we find happiness in such a deed, O Madhava? This is the argument of Arjuna. So let's continue. So what exactly Arjuna is talking about this here? It's his emotional conflict. This is what we have been talking for a long time. Arjuna's struggle between the personal sentiments and dharma. What he feels to do versus what needs to be done. What is dharma? We already talked about dharma a lot. Dharma means what needs to be done for me at that point of time. Take that simple example. Do you want exercise or do you want sleep? The sleep appears to be better. What is wrong? But what needs to be done contradicts with what I feels to do. This is what important. This is important. And then Arjuna, we'll talk about that when we come to the subjective aspect. But here in the case of Arjuna, imagine a soldier going to battle, because we find it difficult to accept because we are not soldiers. Let's say that a big battle happening between the two countries, or let's say that a civil war, like let's say that the army was asked to take an action in a particular encounter. The commander-in-chief, after agreeing to the order to the country, and when he goes and fight the battle, suppose he say that, okay, I cannot kill anybody because of ahimsa. Yes, that point is correct. But for him, at that point of time, being the general of an army, what is his job? Otherwise, he should not have become a general. This is the point. So Arjuna's struggle between the personal sentiments and the dharma, it contradicts. So this emotional issue manifested as raga and shoka, his binding attachment, binding aversion, and that created a sadness or emotional overwhelming. So in this confusion, what is going to happen? This is the results of his moha. Moha means delusion. When I am under that pressure of the situation, what is going to happen? I behave in a way contrary to my own nature. We all know that if you read the emotional intelligence book, this is exactly what it talks. So this is a beautiful painting of each one of us. Arjuna had a war to wage, but we all have the wars in our own life. The war we wage. It is the battle of life. So this is Arjuna's emotional conflict. Let's continue. So then Arjuna Arjuna's proclaimed disregard for victory and pleasure. That is the first thing. Then his moral questioning at the prospect of the family conflict. This is what? Rationalization. When we get into such a struggle, what is going to happen is our own mind rationalize our situation, right? And this conflict portrayed as a universal crossroad versus on what needs to be done, versus what is the personal inclinations. This is very well demonstrated by this set of shloka. So this misinterpretations lot of times can happen. People take that rationalization and they think that yes, that is correct. So emotional argument without dharma, that doesn't have any value. As I talked last week itself, Shakespeare has talked about this a lot. He says anything that comes out of a weak mind, it needs to be disregarded. By citing several examples, you can see this in Macbeth, you can see this in Othello, in almost all the world literature and almost all the lessons you see this. Emotional arguments, emotions while they are good, if that is not lacking the dharma, that has to be eliminated. So the Gita's guidance on the intellect rooted on dharma. It is emotions definitely as an input, but the dharma, adherence to dharma is very important. That is what is Gita is teaching us. So the Gita is addressing not to wage the war or not, anything like that. If actually in somewhere Shankaracharya tells, if Arjuna was asking Krishna to withdraw from the war with a clear mind, with a dharmic essence, Krishna would not have said anything. Here, Krishna's point is different. Arjuna is making a decision and rationalization from with a mind that is weak, that is deluded, and that is confused. That is the problem the Gita is addressing. A lot of time people take Gita as a warmongering book. It's a book advising war. No, Gita is asking us to do what needs to be done. And I don't know, fortunately or unfortunately, the example that you have selected in Gita happened to be a warrior. And what is the duty of a warrior? Is to engage the war. The context of the war is only in that, as far as the Gita is concerned. So let's continue. So this is one aspect. And the second aspect is, let's see the subjective aspect of this shloka. So again, Arjuna is a prototype of all the human being, right? Sorry, I think we went back. Okay. Arjuna is a metaphor for the human vulnerability to emotions and delusions. This is very important. Think about yourself. You know something needs to be done, but the situational pressure or my own binding attachment is not allowing me to do that. This is exactly what is represented by Arjuna. So the call for clarity and wisdom in the face of life's moral and emotional conflict. Whenever there is a conflict in life, whenever I find it difficult to make a choice, whenever I find it difficult to act, whenever I find it difficult to face the life, that is the situation of Arjuna, portrayed by the Bhagavad Gita. So this guidance of the Bhagavad Gita is guiding us towards a clarity, and it is going to give us a skill set so that we can move ahead with our life when such a situation happens. When this Arjuna problems arises in the battlefield of life, we will be able to move forward. And the teachings of the Krishna is addressing this fundamental human problem. Remember, one thing is that there is a problem. Whenever there is a problem, you can take the problem in two different ways. One way of looking at that problem is what? The problem, Arjuna's problem. Arjuna's problem, if you think about Arjuna's problem, the immediate problem is what? Should I engage in the Mahabharata battle or not? If you remember, if you go through the teachings of the Gita, Krishna is not addressing that at all. Krishna is addressing a different problem. If that problem can be easily addressed, Krishna say, okay, you wage the battle. That is what needs to be done. So his teaching is not that. Then what is the problem? The next problem comes in. He's also vulnerable. So in each one of us have everyday life, there are multiple problems. Some of them could be our health problem. Some of them would be family problem. Some of them could be financial problem. Some of them could be social problem. And if seek guidance from somebody for each one of that, then what is the problem? You need to have that guide with you always. Tomorrow also the problem will come. As long as we live in our life, we need to face challenges. But the problem is, am I vulnerable in front of the situation? That I am subjected to sorrow. That I am subjected to suffering. That I am subjected to challenges. This is what the Gita is addressing. So by addressing that problem, Krishna is making us ready to face the battle of life. So if you take this shloka from a subjective perspective, see, imagine Arjuna is the self-control in us. So the self-control want to put certain things out of our life. It might be unhealthy eating. It might be an addiction to the online games or whatever it is. Or it might be an addiction to social media. Or it might be my procrastination. These are some of the things because if you take the self-control, what is the rule of self-control? Self-control wants to put certain disciplines and certain control so that I can move ahead with my goal. Because if I want to pursue my goal, I need to have a focus and I need to make sure that anything that affects my goal is properly addressed, controlled, managed, everything. But what I'm trying to control, look at this picture. It is that unhealthy food. It is that addiction to the games. It is the addiction to social media. It could be that procrastination. Is it easy to control? That if you think about this one slide, you will understand Arjuna's problem. So this shlokas present the excuses put by our own self-control. What? In the face of temptation and challenges in our life. Just pay attention to this slide. You will understand exactly what is Arjuna saying. This is the problem. The battle within is not easy. The question is, can we say no to demands and the pleasures of our body, the senses and the mind, even though they are not good for us? We all know that the smoking is not good for us. A lot of people. But why do they smoke? Every smoker knows that it is not good for us. But why do they smoke? Because they cannot say no to the demands or the pleasures of the bodies and the senses. Why am I procrastinating? Why am I deciding to sleep even though I know that the doctor told me to work out 4 days a week? Why? It is very clear to me that I need to get up and act. But the demands of the body, the demands of the senses, I cannot say no. This is true for the food. This is true for the social media. So if this problem is addressed, it is going to be, our life is going to be a totally different life. And don't think that tomorrow you will be able to manage everything. That is why the whole practice is required. The entire Gita's practice is preparing me to gain these skill set. So this is very important. But this particular slide is very important in bringing that Arjuna's problem into my own life. Because if you just read Arjuna's problem as a problem of Arjuna that happened in the Mahabharata battle, that is very different. When you bring that Arjuna's problem into our own life, it makes a lot of sense. And just like Arjuna gave a lot of arguments, what is the point in destroying them? I may also argue, what is the point in living the life without that unhealthy food, or without that extra sleep, or without little bit of overindulgence in social media? What is the value of that life? I don't want that self-realization. I don't want that disciplined life. That is exactly what it is. So again, forget Arjuna and put ourselves in the place of Arjuna, then only the Gita will come to us. Most of the times people treat Gita as an Arjuna's problem. Swami Chinmayananda used to tell, if you treat Gita as an Arjuna's problem, you will see that Arjuna got a solution, but your problem will be always your problem. So make that connection. That is why the first chapter of the Gita cannot be overlooked. The first chapter of the Gita needs to be studied as a battle we are engaging. All these are battle. This is Duryodhana, Dushasana, Karna, Shakuni, Ashodhama, Bhishma. All these temptations, all these demands of the body, all these demands of the mind, all are enemies in front of me. And as the self-control in me, Arjuna, needs to annihilate all these things and move ahead, then only I will be success. This is not an external battle. This is a battle within. And that battle within is the most difficult battle each one of us needs to wage. So please pay attention to this slide. Let's continue. So the next one is, once the self-control finds that it is not easy to control all these demands of my body, it starts excuses. The self-control says, I'll be disturbing my own personality. Arjuna said, what is the point in living the life? I can say that what is the point in living the life without these pleasures? There won't be any interest or charm in life. Arjuna said, what is the point in living the life? I'll be living a life of regret. So here the point is, some feelings and thoughts are not good for my health or the well-being, but they are born out of my mind. And I don't want a life without that feelings, without that pleasure. The pleasure I get from smoking, I don't want a life. What is the point? So the self-control, would rather surrender to these negative thoughts and emotions rather than annihilating any one of them. So if you just connect these dots and read, the whole first chapter makes sense. I'm just paying a lot of attention because this is the essence of the first chapter, these shlokas. And you can easily relate that with your own life. So let's continue. So then what is going? Challenges of sacrificing non-pleasures. It is difficult to forsake pleasures for uncertain future gains. That is one argument. Addressing harmful tendencies may cause incredible emotional problems. I feel that, okay, what is the life without the sleep or without the cigarette or without this over drinking? I can conclude that. And this eliminating of these negative emotions is problematic as it disrupts my own natural balance of emotions. This is the argument. So I come up with a lot of excuses, and all these excuses seems to be very valid. And as a result, what is going to happen? We surrender. We surrender to that sensual pleasures. We surrender to the demand of the unhealthy food. We procrastinate things. We get into indulge, and as a result, we lose the purpose of our life. So these shlokas warns that when we battling this internal enemies like the bad habits and the temptations, our self-control always aligns with these emotions and compromises. Just like Arjuna felt in the battlefield, our own self-control find helpless and finally just give that battle with them. And as a result, what is going to happen? These destructive emotions and the adharmic thoughts take dominance of my body and mind. And as a result, I will move away from what needs to be done or the path of dharma and get suffered in the life. This is a brilliant picture of our own journey. Once again, please take the Arjuna outside of the picture completely. Arjuna is not an interest for us. Our interest is ourselves. And one more point is, most of the times when we talk this in the classes, we have done this 2 times. And most of the times I remember a lot of people coming to me and saying that now I understand why my child is like this or my spouse is like this. This is not to criticize anybody else. This is only for ourselves. Very important point. Most of the times we don't see that. This is not to judge others. This is only for our own self. Because that's why the whole chapter is self-analysis. This is not to look at our spouse. This is not look at our child. This is not look at anybody. This is our own self-analysis. So what is going to happen? So let's pause here and let me request Avanti to add her thought, and then we will just see some of the related topic from psychology and some of the other scriptures. Like every scripture in the world talk about this. Okay, so let's hear Avanti's thoughts on these shlokas.
So good to be back. It's been 2 weeks. It's nice to be back with everybody. So just breaking down each of the verses, because like Rajesh ji very accurately said that we have to make sure that we can recognize similarities in our life when we read the Bhagavad Gita, because if it's Arjuna's problem, it's going to be great storytelling, great oratory, and no change in our lives. So if you look at verse 32, he said very strong things. Arjuna has spoken very strong things. He says, I desire not victory. He doesn't want to win this war. He doesn't want the kingdom, nor does he want the pleasures that go with the kingdom. And if you look at some of the names that Krishna will continuously call Arjuna as we go on in the Bhagavad Gita, one of his very famous names is Dhananjaya, which means winner of wealth. I think Sanjay has already referred to Arjuna as Dhananjaya in the first chapter only in his narration. So Dhananjaya is winner of wealth. Another one, a word that's already been used is Gudakesha. Gudakesha is conqueror of sleep. Now, a person who is averse to acting in the world would be the most tamasic Kumbhakarna, would be able to sleep for hours and hours and hours and hours. So clearly, Arjuna is not somebody who has got very restful, sleepful, like very restful sleep in the night. He is constantly working towards victory, towards acquisition, towards enjoyment. He's a king, and there's nothing wrong living out whatever his prarabdha is. So when he says these things in this particular verse, that I don't want any of this, his very nature contradicts what he is saying, and that is why it is all falsified. And why I wanted to highlight this is that whenever we are faced with problems like this, we get into this mode. Remember this word, which is called smashana vairagya, which means somebody dies, somebody very close to us. It's happened in my family, it's happened in my life, it's happened within my circles. We lose a very dear loved one. And then suddenly this whole thing, oh, what is this material life? What is all this? Or we are diagnosed with an illness. None of this makes sense. Why should we get entangled with this? Time passes, time heals that sorrow or that illness or whatever. The minute we are healed, we are back with all our vasanas. So this is called smashana vairagya. Smashana means cremation, vairagya means renunciation. So it means that just on that cremation ground, when you're hit with deep sorrow, everything seems worthless, everything seems of no use to us. And we say, oh, we don't want to go on with this kind of life. But the minute we are out of that sorrow, the minute we leave that cremation ground, all our desires come hurtling back at us. And this is what has happened to Arjuna. Arjuna's core vasanas, which makes him a king, which makes him a leader, are of winning wars, winning kingdoms, winning wealth, enjoying it all, to live like a king. So in 1 minute, that cannot change. In one instant, that vasana cannot change. In fact, if you look at the chronology of action, from vasanas erupt thoughts, from thoughts erupt desires, from desires erupt action. And it is very, very deeply interconnected. So you suddenly can't stop an action and say, oh, my vasanas have changed. So overnight or in that instant, Arjuna cannot turn from a king into a bhikshu. And all of us do this. All of us just say, oh no, this doesn't matter to me. This doesn't matter to me in times of crisis. But to be able to, like Rajeshji said, to stand up to that occasion, to stand up to that problem, face it with all our vasanas intact, is what makes us true warriors and winners of these battles of life that we face within. Now, again, like I keep saying, even Rajeshji said that these are logical arguments. If Duryodhana was saying these things, hats off to him. They are very, very true. But for Arjuna to see this, it is completely wrong. In verse 33 and 34, he makes a valid point that generally when we win wars, we share that victory with all our alliances, with all our kith and kin. Even if we go and win something if our child wins something in school, that pleasure is shared with everybody. But if everybody is going to die in this war, then what is the point of this war? Who are we going to share this with? We are going to gain everything, but who are we going to share it with? Because everybody is going to be killed. Another very nice explanation I read of this verse from another Grahastha person who really got into the study of the Bhagavad Gita is another point that Arjuna is trying to make is that the person he's fighting here, see, his main problem has started with seeing Bhishma Pitama. He was the apple of Bhishma Pitama's eye and vice versa. So the point that he's making here is that this person who I am fighting against, Bhishma Pitama, has renounced all of this. He doesn't even care for all this kingdom and all that. He gave it up for the love of his father. He loved his father Shantanu so much that when that condition was put to him, that you will not, get onto the throne, only then I will give my fisher woman daughter to your father as a bride. Just like that, Bhishma Pitama just gave it off. He said, I don't want. And even then, the Satyavati's father had a doubt. He said, okay, maybe you will not want, but maybe your children will want. And there also Bhishma says, you're worried about my children. I take this Ajivan Pratigya, that I will remain Ajivan Brahmachari. So the point actually, if you go to see, is so valid that the person he's going to fight and kill has given up this kingdom for the sake of love. And over here, Krishna is asking him to let go of that love, to let go of that filial connection he feels with his family and fight this war. So that's something else to think about when we look at verse 33 and 34. In 35, very cleverly, he starts there's very clever usage of words, as we look through chapter 1 so briskly, but really, if you pay attention, we learn the art of conversation, how to get somebody on our side. He begins that verse with the word Madhusudana. What does Madhusudana mean? When Arjuna calls Krishna Madhusudana, it means killer or slayer of one of the meanings is of the demon Madhu. So what he's trying to say is, you kill demons, Krishna, and you're asking me to kill my loved ones. So there's that, he's so convinced that he doesn't want to fight this war. He's using all tactics that he can to pull Krishna away onto his side and allow him not to fight this war. Then one more thing you should notice at this point is in verse 32, Arjuna says, I have no interest in winning this. In verse 33 and 34, he laments that he cannot share these pleasures with everybody else. Now in verse 35, he's saying, I don't want sovereignty over the three worlds. What is being highlighted in your face over here? I, me, myself. Just think, have the Kauravas and Pandavas with Krishna, Swayam, Narayan, Bhagwan standing in between over there come to appease one person's likes and dislikes? One Arjuna's likes, I don't want this, I don't want to do this, this is not right. I. What you need to notice over here, by the time we reach verse 35, is this man has completely forgotten the context of the war. He is here, the Pandavas are here, Krishna is standing as his charioteer to fight a righteous war that will re-establish righteousness in a land that is torn by unrighteousness. He has completely forgotten the very motive of the war. Everything is I. This is not right for me. So that's another thing, that when we get into our problems, we fail to see the collective good of everybody else. We just get into our own, pedestal and try to see what is good for us. When we take these verses to any corporate scenarios, we always give this example, is that if you go to your boss to ask something for yourself, okay, like I want an extended leave, or I want leave without pay, or I want, a particular thing for myself, you will never have that kind of confidence. You'll always, you will say it if you're a good speaker or a good negotiator, but you'll always tremble. But if you go to speak for your employees who you are responsible for, my husband faces this problem he's noticed this all the time, is that when he's speaking for his team, the confidence that comes forth, that you are fighting for somebody else, you don't tremble. You stand there and 10 to 1, you will have that agreed. You will get the signature on the paper. Yes, because you fought for your team. Over here, in these particular verses, Arjuna has forgotten the team altogether. And that is why the chaos, the trembling, the physical symptoms, the mental, complete paralysis, all of this is because it's all become about him. He's forgotten of what caliber. We've already seen earlier on in the verses what caliber of warriors are standing beside him, behind him, with him. God himself is standing there as his charioteer. Nothing matters. It's all about I, me, myself. So whenever we are faced with problems, it behooves us to try and see we are not standing alone in the problem. There are many people who are dependent, who become appendages of that problem. So what solution becomes the best for the collective good is what will make us solve this problem. If we just make it about ourselves, the world, the universe is not standing there to cater to us. Much as we say aham brahmasmi, really we are not individually the center of the universe. It's not there to serve us and to cater to us. So this we must understand very, very well. Okay. Then verse 36, again, usage of word. He uses the word Janardana. What does Janardana mean? We've seen already, protector of people. Again, the amount, he's so convinced, the amount he's trying to convince Krishna directly and indirectly that please side me and please say, let's not fight this war. And the funny thing is when he's talking to Krishna also, if you see the usage, he's like, we will incur sin, we will do this, we will do that. He's made Krishna and him a team of this mad delusion that he's facing. So again, over here, he's like, like Janardana, come on, you protect people. You are the protector of people and you're asking me to kill my own people. Very, very clever usage of conversation, which we can learn from. Like not to act so delusional, but how to speak properly to get the other person on our side. In fact, we have workshops just on conversation on chapter 1, how we can use, how to relate properly to get our work done. Okay. So Janardana, again, he's used that over here. Now, this verse is actually very interesting. That one particular verse, Atayinaha, correct, Rajeshji? That's how you pronounce that word?
Atatai.
Yeah, my Sanskrit is okay anyways. But yeah, so that particular word in English, it is the closest translation you can find is desperados. Okay. Now, desperados, Manu, you all have all heard of Lord Manu, who wrote those Smritis, which is very controversial anyways. But in that, there's a statement. This is something that you all should know. There's a statement by Lord Manu, which he says, and attacking however you pronounce that, attacking desperado, how it's translated, must be killed without any hesitation. No sin occurs, no sin is incurred by the slayer of a desperado. Okay, this is Manu's statement that if there is a desperado in front of you, if you attack and kill that desperado, there is no sin incurred. Now, if you see verse number 36, if you have the book in front of you, it is such a confusing statement. Even for a child, he would be confused. Because in one verse, he said such confusing things. He's like, first he's saying, what pleasure is there in slaying the sons of Dhritarashtra? Okay, so he's already said Dhritarashtra. He's put him aside. Sons of Dhritarashtra, so he doesn't like them. That's very clear. Sin alone will accrue to us by killing these desperados. Okay, so he's in this one verse, Arjuna is calling them the worst criminals, desperados, and I'll go on to tell you what qualifies a person to be this particular word that's been used in the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, he's in this verse, he's admitting that these people are the worst criminals, and then he's only saying that we will accrue sin. So such a confused mentality. Now, what qualifies a person to be a desperado? This is by sage Vashishta. He defines what qualifies a desperado. Look at the 6 sins, 6 crimes to qualify as a desperado. First is setting fire to a house. If you know the story of Mahabharata, Duryodhana and his team has set Pandava's house on fire. Okay. Then administering poison. If you know that story, they have poisoned Bhima through laddus. If you know the story of the Mahabharata. Attacking with weapons in hand. Constantly they are attacking the Pandavas and are about to attack again. Robbing somebody of their wealth. Through that horrible game of dice, they took away all of Pandava's wealth. Then dispossessing rightful owner of the land. That is the whole war. That is why the war is being fought. Because when, like Rajesh said, this is termed as a warmongering text, it was never supposed to be a war. Krishna himself went there and begged Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana. They came down to even one small piece of land, we will not have this war. And that's when Duryodhana said, as the eye of the needle, that amount of space also I will not give them. They're not worthy of it. So they have dispossessed the rightful owner of his land. And last is abducting a woman. Okay, they didn't abduct a woman, but they derobed a woman. So if you look at this, guilty on all 6 counts. Guilty. Yes, desperado, please kill. There'll be no sin incurred. So Arjuna is not unfamiliar with these things. He knows very well. But here is where, like Rajesh was saying, knowledge splits on one side and practicality splits just because of overwhelming emotions. We are faced with this constantly. We know what is right. And this question comes directly later on in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna, we know what is right. Why do we still continue to do the wrong? And we won't take that answer now. We'll take it when we get there. But this is a common human problem. Arjuna knows all these facts. And yet he is completely not able to put anything into action. And finally, the last verse that we covered, 37, he starts the verse with tasmat, the word tasmat. Now, Krishna has liberally used this word tasmat right through the Bhagavad Gita. Tasmat means therefore. And in this context, in the context of the Gita, it always comes as a conclusion after a sequential, logical flow of arguments or teachings. So Krishna will say 1, 2, 3, 4, tasmat. Therefore, Arjuna, this is the right thing to do. Now, Arjuna has very confidently used the word tasmat after giving all these rubbish arguments. So over here, he's finished talking all this nonsense. It's clearly nonsense now that we see it in the right light. Logical, yes, for a human being who does not understand the context, but completely illogical where Arjuna is a warrior expected to do his dharma. He's finished talking all nonsense and very confidently, exactly how we do it, confidently he says, Tasmat Krishna. Therefore, Krishna, this is the logical conclusion that I do not want to fight this war. He'll go on to say that towards the end of the chapter. When Krishna uses, just keep this in mind because we'll need this for later on. When Krishna uses the word Tasmat, you will see very sound logic and very clearly reason. Its intelligent conclusions are always following immaculate statements. There is no question of doubt when Krishna uses tasmat. But over here, when Arjuna so confidently uses tasmat, even a child will be left confused. Like, what exactly are you concluding over here? Because it makes absolutely no sense in the context of the Gita. And then when you bring it back to all the fabulous examples that Rajeshji gave, waking up early, oh no, I've slept so late. So this logic is right. And I cannot wake up early because I've slept late. So I need my rest. But we've forgotten why we've slept late. Because for whatever reason, we decided to be on TikTok till 2 or 3 in the morning. So do those two logics, match? Like this, we have to think. We don't take the whole picture. We say, yes, sleep is necessary, but we ourselves have sacrificed our sleep. Junk food. Oh, it's fine and all that. Once a week, I'm eating junk food. Now, the cholesterol is so high, the sugar is so high and all that. Once a week is blasphemy, to eat even once a week. Once a year, if you say it's fine. Or once in somebody's birthday, it's fine. Once a week, yeah. Then once a week becomes, oh, half a piece is enough. It doesn't matter. I've not taken a full piece. So all these kind of excuses we give under the garb of logic, under the garb of reason, and then we say tasmat. But unfortunately, same like Arjuna, despite his tasmat, confident tasmat, there is internal turmoil because he knows he's spoken rubbish. And when we look at our own lives, with all the beautiful excuses that we make for all the rubbish that we do in life, we will still continue to have internal turmoil. So each verse keep relating back to where you stand and you will 100% glean a similarity between what we are doing day to day and what Arjuna is doing on this battlefield. Thank you.
So let's quickly go to some of the external references. So the first one is psychology. The neuropsychology clearly tells, like there's a lot of books after books coming out on this. When we identify ourselves with our negative emotional state, it is very difficult to control them because when we identify these emotions, most of the times you see that we get hijacked and we get dominated by them. I don't want to go a lot, but just understand that this situation of Arjuna, this situation of our own self-analysis, modern psychology talks a lot about it, about the emotional pressure. And this idea is beautifully expressed in all the scriptures of the world. One of the beautiful examples is from Dhammapada. So in Dhammapada, actually there is an incident which talks about Mara. Mara is the demon. When Lord Buddha was about to reach that nirvana state, Mara tried to tempt him with a lot of pressures, because this is, if you are unskilled, later Lord Buddha talks about this, if you are unskilled, what happens? You get into this temptation and you will not reach your spiritual destination. Again, the same idea. The same idea is given in the Bible also. You know that famous story, how Eve was tempted by the serpent by giving that fruit of apple. So in spite of clear commandment from the God, what is going to happen? They fall into that temptation. So the story of that in the Genesis, book of Genesis, it again clearly talks how the failure of self-control, the surrender of self-control. So just wanted to show that this idea is discussed in almost all the scriptures and even in the modern neuropsychology. So a few quotes. One is from Paramahamsa Yogananda, exactly from this chapter. Because of our love of indwelling, clashing good and bad habits, I am reluctant to kill my own kinmen because they are part of my bodily kingdom. Exactly the same thing. Another one is we are dangerous when we are not conscious of our own responsibility, how we behave, think, and feel. This is another thing because we ourselves are dangerous. Daniel Goleman, this is beautifully he tells, but the rational mind usually doesn't decide what emotion should have. This is where the problem is. This is from the neuropsychological perspective. So Paramahamsa Yogananda again, in that pitiable state of momentary bleakness, the devotee must cast away all the feeling of doubt and despair and have in faith. And after the field of consciousness has been well sown and the seeds of deep meditation, same idea. So these are some of the ideas, quotes we have seen. So with that, we conclude this set of shlokas 32 to 37, and we will do the closing prayer and we can have the Q&A.